Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. It's been a pretty chill week this last week after getting all the Blue Mage stuff done. Still working on those versus videos. I did obviously take a huge detour to get a lot of the Blue Mage content out, regardless of how well it was going to do on the channel, because I didn't want to miss out on doing that. But now it's time to get back into the versus related stuff and hopefully get those out over the course of the next couple of weeks. We're going to have to redo the caster one after 5.2, but that's fine. More updates on that stuff is actually something I wanted with the versus series pretty much this entire time. Anyway, other than that, just been working on Dauntless. I kind of want to do a video on Dauntless. It's been a long time since I have done a video on it. The game has improved so much since the early days of playing it that I kind of want to, but I haven't decided how or what the context of the video will be other than just an update on things that have been added in the recent times. So that's still a big maybe, but just keeping you guys up to date of what I'm working on behind the scenes here. Anyway, with that, thank you to our patrons for supporting the channel via Patreon. Our patrons of Darkness, Kujar Cross on Jenova, and Kurenai Oni for going above and beyond as well. Those two have always been fantastic. All of my patrons are fantastic, and even if you're not a patron, you're fantastic for watching this video. So don't worry about that. It's a completely optional thing for supporting the YouTube channel, because YouTube sucks sometimes, and that's the truth. But with that, we've got some questions and answers to get to. Hopefully I'll have answers, so let's get started. Question number 1. 6 days ago, this must have been one of the first ones asked. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays, hashtag choose one. Okay, I appreciate that. You know what? I'll do you the solid. I'll pick one of the questions to answer. I'll read them all, but I'll pick one of them to answer. And if I have time, maybe I'll come back to it. But last week I didn't have time, so let's find that out. So let's see. Why can't Rogue be a starter class? When Shiva gets added to Eden, would you prefer to be a Sail with the bow staff or sword? Of the X-Shiva, the Final Fantasy X-Shiva? Or do you think Ishgard Restoration will restore actual places in Ishgard or just the Firmament? Well, I can actually answer the third one real quick, regardless of choose one. No, the Firmament's the only place that's going to get fixed. I think the question I'll take, because it's one that I feel like I might have a better answer for, is why can't Rogue be a starter class? It has a guild for it, so why can't it happen? So I'm assuming that there are still several aspects of Final Fantasy XIV that suffer from what's called technical debt from its hasty rework from 1.0. You got to remember, the game was rebuilt from scratch in under 3 years. For an MMO, or even for a straight-up any game that's making an engine change, that's a pretty substantial feat, and it means a lot of shortcuts had to be taken to get it out in a reasonable amount of time. I'm assuming in regards to adding starting classes, they probably don't have a means of doing it in the actual code for the character select screen. There's probably a lot of limitations on things that can properly be added without a substantial amount of work. Now, because when they initially designed it, they made it a class that you could take at level 10, I'd assume it's because of that problem. It makes it a little bit annoying. It's only really annoying if you don't start in Limsa Lominsa, because getting to level 10 and doing a class quest and then swapping over, luckily you're not that far in the main story. It maybe takes less than an hour for you to catch up from levels 1 to 10, using things like the hunting log or fates or anything just outside of town, or even the side quests you might have sparingly left behind at some spots. But I'm assuming that it's because of technical debt regarding the character creation screen and some sort of technical debt in regards to designing another class to fit in that. So I just 1.0. I blame 1.0 is what I'm trying to say. All right, question number 2. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hello. How's it going? It's going all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Had a few friends just start to play recently, and I'm getting excited to get to later content with them. I remember from my time playing through A Realm Reborn that it can be a bit of a slog at times. Is there anything you can remember to keep them interested until they start getting into more exciting content? I'd say maybe staggering which content they do when might help a fair bit. The biggest problems are 2.1 to 2.3. And the bigger problem is that while those are the worst parts of the A Realm Reborn quest log, that you're already so tired of it that 2.4 and 2.5 you don't really have the patience for, even though they're quicker, better paced. Everything is just better about 2.4, 2.5 quests. So maybe after doing some 2.1 quests, take a break, do the dungeons that they may have missed from the 2.1 patch, instead of just trucking through the main scenario. Get them those tomestones, that'll allow them to pick up some extra gear, and honestly, having some sort of gear progression as you go through those levels is probably going to take away a little bit from the, oh my god, so many quests problem. Obviously, not the 8-man raids. There's no normal mode raids to go through, so stretching out the 24-mans and the 4-man dungeons are probably your best bet. It's just trying to keep it so they're not... Don't just tell them, yeah, do all 100 of those quests, and then we'll talk. Keep mixing it up. Just try and get them to not do so many quests in a row. That's really all I can think of. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello to you too. I always do the sassy hello to you too when people don't say hello to me. It's fine. How do you feel about the recent uproar over Q-Sync pre-mades and frontline? So it's funny that there's a recent uproar for that, because it doesn't matter. I mean, okay, let me rephrase. It doesn't matter. It's not that it doesn't matter. It's that it's been happening for so long. It's just that now there's rules in place where you can only do like the 4-man groups and people are syncing up the queues. This is nothing new in Final Fantasy XIV or in even World of Warcraft. We used to do cross-server pre-mades in World of Warcraft for Alterac Valley in order to just farm through in like an 8-minute match. And it was wonderful. But it doesn't matter anymore because as of this coming Tuesday, December 24th, patch 5.18 will make it so regardless of your options, everyone's always freelanced. Everyone is always dispersed onto the teams randomly. So, while that's just whatever a problem you can't really do much about other than this, they did the one thing they needed to do. So, it's solved. Whee! Next one. Hi, Mr. Happy, and I'm taking your question because you said hi, even though no hashtags, which are not mandatory for questions. How you doing? Here's a non-14 question. Have you seen the new stuff in Grand Blue Fantasy? I know nothing of Grand Blue. I shouldn't say nothing. I'm trying to remember. Is that a fighting game? Is that what Relink is? I feel like I remember hearing was it Grand Blue for that? No, I don't know if it was. I don't follow it, and no, I as you can tell, I don't have a sustained interest in it. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Aight, Haps, you doing aight? Got a question for you? Aight. Alright, you tried. That's fair. Sorry, just don't speak the lingo. Hey, like I said, you tried. Question, with the relic on the horizon, I was thinking about what the new weapons will look like. And my question is, are there any weapons from previous Final Fantasy games you'd like to see in 14? Me, personally, I love Beatrix's Save the Queen from 9. Love that on Paladin, but any weapon for any job, what you want. I don't really care, unfortunately. You're asking someone who does not really care about glam at all. Like, if a cool weapon gets put in the game, I pretty much go, oh yeah, that's cool. Wow, that's neat. That's from the old games. I have no wish list for these kind of things. I just kind of take them as they appear. Does it look cool? Yes. Then maybe I'll glam it. But I don't like actively seek out or desire any specific item or set or anything to be put in Final Fantasy XIV. I find that if I play the game with that constant expectation or that constant want, anytime I don't get it, I'm just going to be like, maybe next patch. And I've got other things to worry about in Final Fantasy XIV. So for me, no, I don't have a single item from any Final Fantasy that I'd specifically like to see in Final Fantasy XIV. But I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as well, because you wish me that. So I wish you that. Next question, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, happy Merry Christmas to you and yours. You too. Remember, I'm saying it. See? Exactly what I did at the end of the last... Okay, now it's... Alright, I don't know. No. Remember you said before you didn't want to rehash old vids for the sake of having vids. How about a checkpoint vid, such as what kind of gear you want and what abilities you have available come level 34? So, okay, this exact idea I considered doing. I started working on it, and then I realized this is not advice I would give to the majority of players. Because there's a lot of muscle memory things that you pick up along the way to 80 that if you maintain them on the way to 80, you're going to screw yourself in the long run. A big one that came to mind when I first started working on that idea was with Warrior. As of right now, when you level Warrior, you get your AoE Enhanced Infuriate skill before you get your single target one. And so as such, most people just opt into using their AoE one because it's a guaranteed direct crit as opposed to maybe getting a direct crit on the Infuriate for the other skill. For the single target one, which is still better if you get the direct crit, if I remember, but you can guarantee the other one. And so you end up using this AoE attack on single targets. Habits like that, that's a very direct example of that habit forming. I realized as I was writing out the video that there were habits I was about to recommend to people at those specific levels that they'd have to move away from anyway. And so these directions just... It didn't feel like it was accomplishing the thing that I really wanted it to, which was unfortunate because when I first started writing it, I got to the level 30 section, I wrote a bunch of stuff down, And then I got to this like 60 or 70 and I realized everything I had said at 30 was pretty much pointless. And I don't remember what job it was for. And then when I got to 80, it was the same thing. It was like you have to completely rethink. So forcing someone or encouraging someone to think a certain way at one level range when they're going to have to completely change that thought process going forward, it ends up just, you end up just at a spot where someone should just kind of learn what they're going to be doing at max level. And as they pick up skills, they just kind of integrate them on their own based on the knowledge that they have. I find that specifically recommending little things like that, while it can really impress people in the low level dungeons, you can really do some fun stuff at the low level dungeons that people don't expect you to do because they're low level dungeons. It ultimately wasn't as important to me as people picking something up at 80 and understanding how it worked there. So that was the reason why I actually abandoned that whole checkpoint style video, and why I hadn't even remembered that I was considering doing something like that. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello there, Mr. Haps. Hello to you as well. I've got a non-14 related question. Do you like Magic the Gathering? I don't like or dislike it. To me, it's a TCG. You know, I played a bunch of TCGs growing up, and that just didn't happen to be one of them. But it's not because I didn't like it. It's just because getting into TCGs, I have an addictive personality. When I like something, I like to do it obsessively. So when it comes to card games and gambling in general, any form of gambling, I absolutely have an addictive personality. I like to try and stay away from it. It's why I take long extended breaks from even playing basic mobile games, because there are some times where if I'm in a mood, I'm getting that item that I want. If I'm at a slot machine, I'm going till I win big, even if I lose a bunch to get that one good feeling out of it. And with card games, it's the same. I end up so obsessed with opening the packs and getting rare stuff that way instead of outright buying the cards that I need, that it's hard for me to concentrate on the card game itself. So there's all sorts of factors that have led to me playing just a few TCGs across my life, because I end up obsessed with buying packs and opening them. Even the digital ones, it just feels too good to me, and it's hard to get out of my head. Now, that being said, I saw this announcement, the recently announced MMO, and I am always willing to try MMOs. Obviously, Amazon announced an MMO with New World, and then, you know, Magic the Gathering announced an MMO. I'm always down to try these things, regardless of the original context. Sometimes having original context maybe changes my perception. I remember Elder Scrolls Online before it came out. I went in expecting an Elder Scrolls game, and while it took place in those worlds, it didn't really feel like an Elder Scrolls game to me, so it was hard for me to get invested. That wouldn't be a problem here, because I don't think anyone goes, oh, why is this MMO not like the card game? I don't think that's really a reasonable thing to think. At least I want to believe so. So yeah, I mean, I'm always down to try this. I'll probably try Magic the Gathering MMO. Alright, next question, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Good morning, Mr. Happy. It is 3:25 in the afternoon, but you know what? When you see this, it'll be morning. So good morning. Hope your coffee is hot and tasteful. It's the last cup and it's lukewarm at best. But thank you all the same. One, how do you feel about Faust if they were to put something like that back into raids? Faust was fine for when it came out. I could live with or without it. It's basically the same feeling as I have with Trash. It's like, if it's Faust, see, Faust from a functional standpoint is, if you can't beat me, you don't deserve to do the rest. And that's kind of a good thing. But then after you've proven yourself once, doing it over and over again is a lot less fun, is the problem I run into. That even happens with the first phase of some of the, well, actually 2 out of 3, I'd say, even of the Stormblood Savage bosses, where instead of doing like a first, you know, gate boss like with Faust, they made the final boss have a first phase that then checkpointed you to a second phase, and then when you exit the instance, come back, you got to beat that again. They said they got the same feedback, where it was just annoying every week to have to do this first phase, to then get to the second phase, to then wipe on purpose, to then actually do a normal pull there. So I'm impartial. I kind of just take what they give us, and it either feels good or it doesn't. For this, I don't know that we really need another Faust. I would, however, like to see them start making Stone Sky Sea. Here's the thing, making it mandatory is kind of rough, because some jobs have really annoying Stone Sky Seas, and there are some jobs that have really easy ones. But maybe at least beat the first Stone Sky Sea of a Savage tier. Like, if you can't beat the first entry-level Stone Sky Sea, maybe you can't go in. But, again, that largely depends on... Yeah, it's just, it depends on how tough an individual job Stone Sky Sea is on a given fight. And then for tanks and healers, that's a little bit weird, because you do literally no tanking or healing, so at the very least you're just proving you know the order your buttons go in, and testing direct crit and your overall knowledge of the job. So yeah, there's always some sort of drawback to it, and so I'm okay with the way it is now. I don't think we absolutely need a Faust. As for the second question, since I did answer 2 questions from that first one, because the first one was really short. How do you feel about the special edition emotes that come in the only expensive statues? I feel like there's some other form of getting the emote, especially since I see a lot on eBay, just reselling the figure and only buying it for the emote. Again, impartial. This kind of goes back to the glam question I answered before. It doesn't matter as much to me, so it's hard for me to really give a level-headed response, because I don't want the statue, and if the statue is the only way to get the emote, I just don't want to buy the statue. So I'm kind of in your boat. Maybe if there was another way, but there's plenty of things that they don't tie to statues or CDs or what that they throw in the Mog Station that I just don't buy because I don't want to. And these items for me would be no different. They'd have to just put them in the Mog Station. I don't see any other way that they would consider doing it, because if it requires money to get one way, they're going to make it require money to get the other way. And so it's a lost cause to me, essentially. So no, I don't think they will, and for that reason, I also don't think they kind of should, because I don't know. I'm torn. I don't have a good answer for this one. I don't have a good answer for a lot of the questions this week, to be honest. That one's probably my worst answer so far today. It just doesn't matter to me, so it's hard to respond. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Yellow, man, how you doing? Sounds, luckily, I know that you're saying yellow like hello, not... Yeah, because, I mean, it obviously wouldn't apply to me, but, you know, anyway. I've recently gotten to Gathering through Ishgard content and saw they're revamping that island just for Gathering. How interesting do you think they'll make the content specifically with limit breaking to gather off mobs? I'm going to be honest, at the end of the day, it's Gathering. They can do whatever they want with it, but it's still going to be Gathering. So it'll be at least a little exciting to shoot a rocket launcher at a monster to get the stones that chip off of it every so often, but... it's still Gathering, you know? It's not suddenly going to become this very dynamic, exciting experience, but it will be nice. The thing about Gathering is just offering different locales and different rule sets for the Gathering is actually an approach they take with combat content as well, where the combat's always the same, but by adding and changing the rule sets and what's allowed, and you know, any sort of special actions with like logos and stuff, making constant changes like that keeps something feeling fresh, even when you're not fundamentally changing the thing that you're going to be doing the most during that piece of content. So I'm actually kind of glad that they're exploring that with crafting and Gathering, you know, opening up a Gathering beast tribe, a Gathering exclusive one, at the same time opening up this Gathering island, at the same time opening up this ocean fishing thing, making these quality of life changes. They're all very fresh feeling, and it's something Final Fantasy XIV has always kind of struggled with every expansion content wise, is always very copy pasta. And I'm okay with that because I like the things that 14 has perfected and made part of its formula, but not everyone does. So having things like this that are very unexpected, very out there, and very different rule sets definitely adds a level of experience to the game that you otherwise couldn't have had before. So I don't think it's going to be that exciting. It's still Gathering, but I'm really glad they're doing it. Alright, next one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. First time asking a question. Hello to you too, by the way. Long time watcher, so I have a first time bonus of some great tasting coffee. Speaking of coffee, now that you live in the Bay, have you had a chance to try our local favorite coffee chain, Pete's? That's not local to Bay. That is also on the West Coast. It's in LA and San Diego. So the short answer is yes. That was one of the first coffees I had when I first moved to the West, when I was living in Los Angeles. In fact, I lived like a block away from like a straight up normal Pete's coffee. So when I would buy coffee for the coffee grinder before I had my partnership, I would buy Pete's coffee, and it's good. It's nothing like, it's better than like a Starbucks brand or like a Dunkin' brand, but there's also much better specialty brands that I've found that I don't want to name them, and I couldn't name them, to be honest, now that I think about it, outside of Pete's, because I hadn't even thought of Pete's in ages, because I haven't had Pete's coffee in quite some time. But yeah, no, Pete's is good. It's way better than Starbucks and Dunkin'. As for the dark roast, so I don't do dark roasts for coffee. Dark roasts I used to do when I didn't understand the way the coffee bean worked. I thought a dark roast was a more intense coffee, a more like a higher caffeine content. It's not. Lighter roasts are higher caffeine content. Darker roasts are more bold flavors with a lower caffeine content. So I've moved almost exclusively to light with the occasional medium, which is what I have right now today, because I have an addiction to caffeine and I need high levels of caffeine or I feel like a complete schlup. I'm just like, oh. Yo, you got that coffee? Got that caffeine? Got that caffeine? Got that for me right there? So yeah, that's where I stand on that one. Pizza's good, but it's not local to the Bay. It's the West Coast. I haven't seen it outside the West Coast yet. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, hashtag first time asker. Hello there, Mr. Happy. Hello, first time asker. Been a fan of the channel for about 6 months. You know, I think you're the first person who's giving me an exact like month time frame for that. Also caught your first live stream on the week of 12/18 to 12/14. Hey, that's my mother's birthday, and I enjoy watching you get that epic Alexander clear, so congrats again. Thank you. I've got weekly clears to do for that now. I have 3 quick questions / statements. Mostly fun. They won't take up much time. Thank you in advance, and happy holiday. Happy holidays. I think I had a stroke there for a second. I was born in New York City, so Tri-State area represent. 1, why did you pick Lalafell for your main character, and why do you regret it? It's just a Lalafell joke. So I didn't actually pick Lalafell. The only reason my main is a Lalafell is I was invited to be a judge for a Lalafell glamour contest, a guest judge. I would have been a terrible guest judge, but I told the person, okay, that's fine, but I'm not a Lalafell. And they said, can you become a Lalafell for this event? And I said, can you provide me with a Fantasia? Because I don't have any spares, and I'm going to have to pay to turn back also. They gave me a code for 5 Fantasias, which is like the $45 code or whatever it is. And they also gave me the prize money for the Glamour contest. And then they never held the contest. I don't know if it was all just one big ploy to get me to be a Lalafell. It may have been, but from what I understand, this person had done Glamour contests in the past and people did know about it. So I mailed the prize winnings back to them because I think it was just they gave me $1 million flat, which I could fit inside of one message, so it worked fine. And then I realized that playing as a Lalafell, I actually preferred it just from a character size standpoint. Like, it gave me the most visibility. Now when I play as anything taller, it's kind of difficult because I don't have the same judgment of space as I do on my Lalafell. So I don't care about potatoes, lava, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. It's just now that I'm so used to playing as such a small character, it's really hard for me to do otherwise. On top of that, I made my girlfriend help me by designing my character, and then I added mutton chops to the side. So because she designed this character, I just haven't transferred off of it because I'm not going to ask her to design another character for me. I'm just going to use the one that she designed in the first place. Question number 2, if you could let Blue learn one spell in the Final Fantasy universe, what would it be? Ultima. That was easy. 3, if you could give one fight battle trial dungeon a revamp like how the Wandering Minstrel does, which battle would it be? I would probably even rework the ultimates we've had thus far. Alexander, I feel like they could have done a lot of different things. Looking back on the ultimate encounters, now that I've had a few weeks to mull over it, I kind of don't even like judging them like directly against each other, but I'm not actually that big a fan of the Epic of Alexander. I love the music the most. I'm a huge fan of the Alexander music. But the actual encounter, altogether, like in all of its pieces, I don't know that I actually prefer it over Uwu or Ukab. That's why I mostly have to compare phase. Like, I like the Brute Justice Cruise phase, but Perfect Alexander, I don't, it's not, whatever. But then I think back to Ukab, and Ukab's like a fucking snooze fest for the first 11 minutes. So do I really like T less than that? I don't know. I think it's just because I've done the old Ultimates enough to the point where I see a lot of the weak spots in Ultimate designs, and then I think to like some of the most shining aspects. I think the best part of any Ultimate fight they've ever designed is actually the pre and post and during Annihilation section of Uwu. I like it when they give us intense boss dances and we have to still keep uptime on the boss. I'm not a fan of all the monsters go away and you do the mechanics. I just don't like it compared to that. So that's why I really, really like the Annihilation phase of the final part of Uwu. So, yeah, for me, I'd almost rework Alexander as an ultimate encounter. If I was given one option, I think I would do that. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Mr. Cheerful. Hello. Long time watcher, but your first time YouTube commenter. Last time I gave you a free flight and hotel to my home country of Sweden. Wait, first time you... But you said... But so this isn't your first time. Why is my phone going off? Leave me alone. Let's see. You've been gone from home for a long time. My question is, how would I try to find a static this far into a patch? I rated up to E3 Savage until I had to quit for about 1.5 months due to personal reasons. But now I'm back and I want to get back into rating. My old static already found a replacement, so I can't go back there. I feel like everyone's just advertising for Ultimate, so finding a static still procs E3 Savage is hard. Not sure how to go about finding it. So I would personally say you might want to try pugging the remainder of Savage. I know it's a tough ask, but you might want to try doing that. And then use the experience you have in Savage to find a new static for 5.2. It won't be long now before people are recruiting for 5.2 Savage. And so you're coming back to the game at about a point where it's not going to be that bad to do. So if you can just try to pug through E3 and E4, while maybe you might find a static doing that. I know plenty of people who have found statics just pugging. And then they just they find that one group that's just looking for that one fill that day. And then they're like, oh, dude, yo, we need a replacement. Why don't you join us? I would do that, personally. I think that's your best bet. You can try posting on the recruitment Reddit. If you go to Final Fantasy XIV Reddit, there's other subreddits under there. And the recruitment one's an option. Or you could advertise in the Party Finder as well. But, you know, any of those options should work. Just normal recruitment options plus trying to pug. Next question, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, hashtag one question plus bonus question. You can't say it's one question and then say there's a bonus. I guess you can. You say two questions and pick one. You can't, you're trying to get around. I see what you're doing right now. I see what you're doing. Hey, I hope you're better and we're able to slack on that orange juice. I like orange juice. I'm a big fan of orange juice. Context, in a recent thread on Facebook, someone was asking what would anyone wish to have in 14. Many were saying a mount or an item. However, most, if not all, of these can still be obtained. My wish would be to incorporate the 1.0 storyline, maybe as part of New Game Plus, as a special feature achievement unlock. Having only started A Realm Reborn, I would love to experience it and not watch an 8-hour YouTube video, and I'm sure other players would be interested in seeing this lost lore story. How would you see, if at all possible, the re-implementation of the 1.0 story? And if you could wish to have anything in 14, what would it be? Okay, I think that's a fair bonus. I think looking back now, it's a fair bonus question. Bonus first, Puppet Master is a job. Done. How would you see, if possible, the re-implementation of 1.0 storyline? So I was there. It's not really all that spectacular. You kill a couple of primals, the Garleans make themselves known, and that's it, really. You get a few cool scenes with the nail, and that's kind of it. How would I see it? Cutscenes in the book, and that's it. No playing it. I mean, a lot of the ways you can't even play it, they have to completely remake the areas where it took place in order to make it work. And then you'd still have to do, like, Ifrit hard mode as part of it, and then Garuda and Moggle hard mode as part of that, but then do it again as part of the 2.0 story. Probably just put the cutscenes in the book, is I'd imagine the only way I'd ever imagine 1.0 being re-implemented into 2.0. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. I need a more interesting thing to say than next one. Hashtag next one. There you go. Hey, Habs, how does Adol Fate work? Does it decrease 10% of the attack, or there's another calculation on the back end, then it decreases the boss attack? So, do not quote me on this. This is another question that's probably better on the balance, people who have properly done the math, properly done the research, and not me. From what I understand, which is probably incorrect, so do not take this question as a final answer, and please seek additional confirmation. It is a calculation on the back end that this directly affects. If something says it reduces damage dealt overall, then something like Reprisal, for example, that is all damage. That is the damage at the end of the calculation from how much damage the boss is going to do, reduced by 10%. If something says it's going to reduce the intelligence or strength or one of the damaging stats, like Feint or Adol, it reduces that amount, which is then used to calculate what the final damage will be, which is not equal a flat, in this case, 10% damage reduction. That is my understanding of it, but again, please seek additional confirmation, because all I care about as a DPS player is I'm doing what needs to be done, and it will reduce the boss's damage to some degree. He also asked, how does item level sync work? For example, you need I-475. What is the difference between using an I-475 average to an I-476 plus average? The The answer to that question is very simple. Materia. The way Final Fantasy XIV is designed is that if your items are synced down, the materia benefits are rendered null and void. For that reason, when people go back to conquer old Ultimate content, right now it doesn't, ultimately, no pun intended, it doesn't really matter if you're in the item level gear for that patch, but you will see a minor increase most of the time wearing item level appropriate stuff with the materia slots available, as opposed to just sinking down to it. But that really only matters in Ultimate, and I have done it without doing that. I've gone back and done my Ukab and my Uwu without re-obtaining item level relevant sets and been fine. So I don't think something you really need to worry about, but that is how item level sync works in the game. Next one. Sorry, don't have anything better yet. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? Hope you and yours have a merry holiday season, and I hope to you as well. Now my question, and my question pre-poll. You doing a pre-poll countdown for you? I feel like the difficulty curve of tank and healers is fairly steady with pretty clear feedback on how good you are doing at the very specifics of said job. For DPS, it's almost always a flat line until you hit the upper difficulty when it shoots straight up. You go from going through everything in the game without having to learn proper DPS skills or rotations due to complete lack of consequences to a very deliberate DPS check and major expectations to know how to play your job well. In your opinion, what are some things that devs could do to mitigate this and help train DPS players without them having to go outside the game for things like ACT? I've always been a big fan of them creating what they consider the baseline amount. So something that like they would use as a Stone Sky Sea calculation. And in the content you're doing, give you a grade ranking relative to their back-end calculation. So for example, let's say Stone Sky Sea required you to do 15,000 DPS on a fight, and you did 14,000, right? Now, obviously, this is a very loose example because Stone Sky Sea has no mechanics. It's just a dummy. So don't use this exactly, but let me just make my point here. Let's say that the number that they're looking at is a 15,000 and you score 14,000. Maybe you get a D ranking because you're below what is considered the acceptable average to complete the encounter. Maybe you score 15,000, you get a C ranking. You score 15.5, you get a B, 16, you get an A, and anything 16.5 or over, you get an S or an S plus or whatever. That way they can let you know how you're doing without necessarily providing you a number, which is the big thing that they seem to want to avoid. They want to avoid in-game parsers. So a letter ranking to let you know your expected performance. Now, unfortunately, that only really works with DPS. Like, you could technically do it with healing, but good healers barely cast healing. They only do it when absolutely necessary. So they'd have to do it for things like overheal. They'd have to have a really good understanding of what the average player is doing in regards to HPS. So I think just doing that with DPS is a good enough thing for players to understand where the accepted minimum is for that. And if not for every job, again, at least for DPS and maybe tanks. Healers should get it too, but I know how people get regarding this topic. So that's all I can think of. And they should do that for the dungeons as you're going up. It shouldn't just be for the max level content. They should have some idea of what an acceptable level of damage is across the entirety of the leveling process. So that's how I feel. I don't know if that's the way everyone else feels, but that's the way I feel. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, mate. May you have a blessed and may you be blessed with unexpected donuts. Oh, now I'm expecting donuts. Oh yeah. Question: when Blue has its level raised to 70, do you think it will still be able to do, or do you think it will be able to do these Stormblood Ultimate fights? They seem to make the old 8-mans a little easier, so they can be doable, but at the same time, the fights are so intense that it might be a bit much. If it's possible, what kind of award do you think would be fair for completing that kind of challenge? So first of all, I know Blue Mage weapons don't do anything, but you better make a fucking ultimate version of a Blue Mage weapon if you're going to encourage people to attempt it. That's all that needs to happen. I make it have 5 fucking slots of materia, like you do with the 2-slot one, and give one for Ukab and give one for Uwu. That's it. That's what they should do if they do it. That being said, it's not as simple as allowing them to do ultimates. Now, in the case of the Unending Coil of Bahamut, it's pretty straightforward. There's no real reason a Blue Mage group would not be able to tackle that content. The Weapons Refrain Ultimate, however, has a very specific requirement in the form of your limit breaks. Blue Mage has an on-call tank limit break and nothing else to really deal with that. So I think if they are going to allow us to do ultimates, or if they have an intention of Blue Mages being able to do ultimates, I think we might see a limit break equivalent given to Blue Mages in the next patch for when Blue Mage is actually updated to 70. The question is how they'll do it. Will they make it like, because Diamondback obviously is, we use it a lot, you know? And I don't know if they want us to be using it as much as we are using it. So there's a question mark, and if they'll give that the final sting / self-destruct thing where, like, using Diamondback gives you, like, ethereally drained or something where you can't use it again for a set period of time. I wouldn't be surprised to see them do that with Diamondback. And if they do that, that opens up the door for them to do that with other skills, something that would be considered a single target limit break or a caster limit break. What if every Blue Mage could use a skill, but it gave them a Brush of Death-like status, so they couldn't use it again for a long period of time, like a one-button use in most long fights? That's a very reasonable thing to suspect, and maybe that action also costs limit break gauge, so they have to communicate with it. So they need some sort of solution if Weapons Refrain is going to be done. But I do hope they come up with one. And I think it'd be useful in all content anyway. I think it'd be nice for Blue Mage to have a flexible limit break because they've moved it towards this flexible party option for all Blake. They can do anything in a group of all Blue Mages. And I think this is just the next evolution of that. So that's what my prediction is going to be. I do think they'll let us do it, and I do think they'll have a reward handy. But I'm also just looking forward to doing Omega as a level 70 Blue Mage. And that I think there will be another mount reward for. Next question, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello. Hello. They made sure I saw the hello. Do you think Blue will ever get a team limit? All right, well, I guess I don't really need to answer. Okay, what were the odds that I was going to answer the same question twice in a row? Yeah, I mean, see the question before and how I think it will be done. How I'm predicting this will be done. All right, I'm scrolling past this question and not answering it, but the next question that I saw is literally... do you think that on top of Omega, they will give us something for... Yo, you guys really got the same Blue Mage. Everyone's thinking the same thing for Blue Mage, right? Look at this. This is the same question again. You guys got good taste. That's all I'll say. And what do you know? That also coincidentally happens to be the last question I'm going to be answering for this week's episode. I'm not even really sure how long it is because I took some time to type out a response to something. I think this is close to like a 40-ish minute video anyway, so I think that kind of works out. But that's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. If you have a question for next week's episode, be sure to ask it in the comment section of the video below. And if you don't have a question, just be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share on your way out. But again, thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to everyone asking questions. Thank you to our patrons of darkness. And I will see you all for the next episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Thank you for watching, and until then, take care.